Welcome to the Autism Workforce Solutions Podcast. I am your host, Karina Gaudier, founder and CEO of Autism Workforce Solutions. On this podcast, we'll explore how together employers, professionals, educational institutions, families, and autistic individuals can create more inclusive workplaces, unlock untapped talent, and connect people with meaningful opportunities that benefit everyone. Let's get into it.
Summer is supposed to be a break, but for neurodivergent individuals and their families, the disruption of routine often triggers an invisible, overwhelming mental load. Today, we are breaking down why support doesn't end at 18 and how this hidden family coordination directly impacts workforce readiness. I am joined by the wonderful Karina Gaudier, founder and CEO of Autism Workforce Solutions and author of A Practical Guide to Autism in the Workplace. Karina combines her corporate finance background with her lived autistic experience to offer real and practical solutions.
Yes. Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us. We're so excited to chat today. This is June. We are talking about a really, really beautiful topic for this month. Karina, let's talk a little bit about summer routine disruption. What does this invisible mental load actually look like behind the scenes for families at this time of year?
So when it comes to summer, we can talk about all the loss of routine and the disruption in all that the autistic people normally would be doing, which would be school. And the loss of that structure can cause a lot of disruption in our mental state and also in our nervous system. So with that, the families have to kind of coordinate and advocate at work or even at camps or summer schools or whatever they're sending their kids to be able to really create a routine that works for that entire summer, right? And that can be a lot, right? It's a lot of mental load on the parents. It's a lot of mental load on the autistic person. And that's why we're going to discussing this. It's a very important topic.
And something really important that you advocate towards is that this support, you mentioned about kids in school, but also that this support doesn't end at 18. I'm wondering, what is the transition into adulthood? And the workforce often is the most vulnerable during this time. Can you give a bit of context of your perspective on this?
I think society envisioned or established that once you turn 18, you don't need any more support, and that is absolutely wrong. The type of support just changes, right? You're not going to have, well, if you're going to university or college, you're still going to have that structure, but the needs are going to be a little bit different, right? Because the environment is going to be different. It can create a lot of anxiety when it comes to you're going to find your first summer job or you're going to find your first job, or if it is for the parents where they are working, right? It's not something that comes naturally to us. That's a big change. We have to kind of create a plan to see how life is going to look like now. And most likely all the supports that we had all the way up to high school are not going to be implemented anymore. It's unfortunate, that's the reality. And that's what I'm trying to change, is I'm trying to advocate that we're still going to need support. It's just different types of supports to create programs that do support us once we are adults. And also, I think it's very, very important to emphasize the role of being independent but being a sustainable independent, right? It's not just like, hey, go out in the world and figure it out. Now we want to be independent. We want to work. We want to go to college, university. We're just going to need different steps to be able to do that. It's creating an independence, yes, but also something that is catered and it does really adjust to our needs.
Absolutely. And you mentioned that in those earlier years of life, in those different phases, there are those support systems and that sometimes they drop off at that point. I'm really interested about the role of parents and caregivers. That might look different to every individual, but these parents and support networks are often carrying this advocacy load while also trying to manage their own careers. How does this family coordination bleed into the workplace impact? Maybe both for the autistic individuals, but also for the parents and families that are supporting. And especially during June, as we're coming into the summer, what does that look like, and what suggestions might you have for people?
For caregivers, parents, or families, I would say making sure that you are communicating to your employer that you do have someone with autism that you care for, and you might need a little bit of flexibility, or like your energy levels are not going to be as high because now you're dealing with something that is a complete change and that can disrupt the daily lives, right? It's asking for that empathy and compassion and a little bit of flexibility. You might have to leave work a little bit earlier some days, or it's just creating that narrative and making sure you are disclosing so you can get that flexibility. I think it's very important. And when it comes to autistic people, I think if you're trying to get like a summer job, or if you're trying, it's going to be your first job, or whatever kind of job you're trying to get, is making sure you're also taking care of yourself while you're going through that process. Understand what are your strengths, understand what kinds of jobs you can actually do, and then kind of combine them, right? And then once you go into the employer, make sure you also disclose, because I think it's also very important for them to know so they are able to accommodate whatever needs you might have. And then you can be the best you can be.
Right. And how would you suggest for parents or families of these individuals to support them in this time of transition?
I would say be very patient. Again, patience is key in life, but in this change is extremely important that you're patient. Don't push it too hard, because that can also overstimulate our nervous system. Just be there for whatever we might need. Again, if it is something like, hey, I'm having a horrible day, can you come pick me up? Be ready to have that flexibility, but also understand what they're going through, right? I think that's the human condition, and it's really hard to understand something unless you have been through it, right? For the parents, they have seen their kids grow up through a lot of difficulties, and I think they hope that once they become adults, lives get easier, and that is absolutely not the case. I would say that it gets harder, because now there are so many expectations of us that we should know things that there's no way for us to know. Yes, patience. And if you are able to create a schedule, great, right? So if you're able, if that autistic adult is going into a job, to make sure that they have a structured schedule, right? They go to work the same time every day, and then they finish work the same time every day. This pretty much bringing all that you have been doing with your kid, but aligning it to the actual workplace now, right?
Those are really helpful things for workplaces of those parents or families. Can
Yeah.
you talk on what you would advise HR or different individuals in corporations to be able to better support the parents?
Patience. Again, patience run the world. But I think it would be empathetic, understand they're not doing this because they want to, right? It's unfortunately that's the cards that they were dealt with, and it doesn't matter if you're going to support them or not, they're still going to go through it, right? The more supportive you are, the better of an employee they are, right? Instead of like, oh, you had to leave early on Monday, so now when you're going to make up the time, just be, hey, is the work done? Good, you can go, it's fine, right? And I think that's the part for companies to understand, that flexibility doesn't mean that the job is not going to get done. It just means it might be done in a different way than you are normally accustomed to, but it's still valid.
And that really, if you give the accurate support and maybe even just energy towards those employees, that that work will get done that much better. That's
And they're going to have such a great loyalty to you because they're going to be so grateful, right, for you being there for them when they need. It's just a win-win situation for both. Yeah.
amazing. Really thinking about how you run your business, your ownership of the Autism Workforce Solutions, and the guide you've created as well. So
Mhm.
your style is very much direct, no-fluff solutions. And in your book, you break down systems for professional integration.
Yeah.
For a family trying to build workforce readiness over the summer, what might be some practical takeaways that they can implement now and maybe in preparation for this?
Make sure you know what the autistic adult now needs, right? For example, if I mentioned schedule, that is a big one. Second one is make sure that the environment that they're going to be working at will not overstimulate them. That's a second one. And then making sure that, whoever's going to be managing them or working alongside them do understand and don't judge. That is very common, I think. Just because autism is an invisible disability, you don't see it right away, right? Once we say something very out of pocket that like a neurotypical person wouldn't say, people get like, oh, wow, right? Make sure that they are also aware. A lot of the times I do suggest, if it is like a first job or if it is a summer job or whatever the scenario is, I do suggest going in before the first day just to see if the environment is okay, just to see the noise level and things like that. And then you can also meet whoever you're going to be working with and do a little introduction so you can feel a bit more confident. And on the employer side, I would say make sure that only one person is training the autistic person, because then it doesn't have it doesn't have to be like the entirety of the day, but when the training is being done, it has to be the same person every single time, just because it can be very hard when you have different learning styles or different teaching styles as well. It's a lot, right? For us, again, routine and predictability, that's where we really really thrive. I think those things are just little things that you can do and it will create such a an impactful difference.
That's a really good starting suggestion. And because these individuals, these corporations, the families, they may not have access to all of the resources
Mhm.
to either guide how to be a good guide for somebody coming into the business, but also a guide for individuals to prepare and regulate themselves to be as ready as they possibly can be for these new environments. And then
Yeah.
how families can also support those individuals, because we might not have access to the resources or the information for different entries into life. You did create something that's sort of a more of micro learning options, which is really helpful to people. And one thing that you recently just launched was a workplace hacks course.
Yep.
How does a highly accessible tool like this help bridge the communication gap for early career professionals?
It is a very short course. It's self-paced, obviously, and it gives you tools to practical things that you can actually be doing in the workplace. It goes from how to ask for specific accommodations, right, for the autistic individual, but also how the workplace can be proactive and make some changes, right? If they already know that they're going to be receiving an employee that is autistic, they can do some proactive changes. It's just a quick learning session. I know it is a lot. It's a big learning curve for a lot of companies, but once you really get started on that, you can see the difference. And the difference that it brings is not just for autistic people, it's also for neurotypical people. It's just your team will function much better and more efficiently.
And it's such a misconception that it's these accommodations that we're creating, and it's going to take all these resources, and it's going to take all this time, and it's going to be such an inconvenience. But really, it's these micro changes that you outline in this course that
Yeah.
really make an environment just more enjoyable to the masses.
Yes, and again, it's not just for autistic people, it works for
Yeah.
neurotypical people too.
And that's the thing too. If people are, if individuals in corporations of leadership in any kind of realm, if they're looking for more retention, if they're looking for how to create a happy work culture, how to create more active communication, for people to vocalize issues before letting them linger and it affecting performance, it affecting collaboration between individuals. These are really beautiful, practical options that people can, you mentioned proactivity, not just waiting until there's a big issue and then having to backtrack and regulate. It's how can we be proactive to create an environment where people will thrive? I'm excited to see more into that course and for people to see it as well, because it's a nice attainable piece to start with.
Yeah.
Before we go, I really want to talk about a little bit more into the HR perspective. We spoke a little bit about HR for the parents and families, and this course being an option for people to be able to make the environment a little bit more accessible. But let's say there's a HR director that's listening right now, corporate partnerships and workforce integration coordinators listening. What is one thing you would really want them to understand about neurodivergent talent pool right now and why it's so important to make these integrations?
I would kind of start saying that for Ontario specifically in 2021, one person in 66 was diagnosed, right, with some sort of disability. Eventually, the talent pool will be probably half neurodivergent. There is no escaping this. There's no, oh, maybe we'll get better. No, that's going to be a reality. That's going to be the talent pool that you will have to hire in the future. Be proactive and start now, right? The more prepared you are to bring in those individuals, the more you're going to thrive as a company, right? And also, we bring so many good qualities. We bring creativity, we bring a different way of thinking, we bring a different problem solve skill, and we really want to work. We need the workplace to accept us and really want to have us there. And once that is set, we are going to be the best employees you will ever have. And I've heard that from multiple sources, from really high up people to people in the government, to like that is a reality. So as long as you just provide us an environment that we can be the best that we can be, and with no judgment, we're going to be the best that you will find. It is actually like an economic decision for you. It is for, as a country, right, is also the right thing to do, because the more people you have working, the less they need support, right? So we can invest in different areas as well. Yeah.
Amazing. Great points. There's so many things that we can pull from, and I know that there's so much more that we'll continue to discuss, but thank you for these incredible insights. I want people to be able to know exactly where you would suggest for them to find you, as well as the specific workplace hacks course, how people can access that, your book, these different resources at different levels that people can access if they want to learn more, these practical skills. Where can they find you?
On Instagram is Autism Workforce Solutions. The website on Instagram, you'll be able to find Linktree, and then everything is linked there. And if you just want to check our website, is again autismworkforcesolutions.com. There are some insights there, but then everything will be linked to the Linktree. And if you want to watch us on YouTube, it's the same thing, Autism Workforce Solutions.
Amazing. Yay. I'm excited for this to go airborne, to share these insights with people, and looking forward to continued conversations.
Me too. Yay.